What I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. But right now, I do want to turn to our next guest, who is, among many other things, he'll have to remind me of what his title is because he's not the head of, but he is involved with the economic research around the racial wealth divide, working with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition. He is one of the preeminent spokespeople on the issue of the racial wealth divide in our generation at the time, and somebody we appreciate making regular and routine visits to our platform. And that, of course, is Dedrick Asante-Muhammad. So, brother, good morning. Welcome again. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to be here. Good to be here. I always like I come in, man, and you start on such light subjects, you know, deconstructing what happened on 9/11, and now for your unemployment numbers.
I'm not deconstructing. I'm simply raising the question. And I've been watching some of this stuff. Like I said, you know, I've been having fun with my little Elmer Fudd graphic. I've been going down the rabbit hole and on some of this stuff, and it's fascinating. And I admit, I think it's a good tactic. I think it's important, and even as we approach the discussion we're about to have, to avoid some of the theory, some of the analysis politically, some of the who, what, the who or why questions, and to just stick to get certain bits of information out. Because once you start laying on your own analysis, your own politics, it often can turn people away, and then the core centerpiece of the facts get lost. So that's why I was saying, like, I really appreciate their approach. You know, and when you look at the science, it's very, like I said, all I'm saying is compelling.
Well, I always find too, people feel a need to point to the most extreme conspiracy theories instead of highlighting the better documented conspiracy theories, which is still pretty bad, right? I mean, it's pretty clear the conspiracy around invading Iraq, you know what I mean? What we've done in Afghanistan, there's all of these things. And people want to jump toward, you know, were bombs put in the World Trade Center, you know, and like, obviously, I don't know. I was in New York. I saw one of the buildings fall, but, you know, have no analysis. It was clearly a tragedy what happened, but the tragedy that followed and that, you know, ended with, or I don't know if it's ended, but most recent chapter closing with us losing in Afghanistan and being chased out of Afghanistan after $2 trillion and what is it, hundreds of thousands of Afghans killed, I think.
It's something like that. And,
Like that.
But well, and then again, that's sort of the question of even describing it as a loss. Is it a loss when because somebody made $2 trillion off of that? So that's why I'm saying, you know, like it's anyway. But
that's interesting.
We'll come back to it, and it's even something I went back and I want to come back to, you know, another time as well, or even later this morning, depending on whatever. But on Ward Churchill's comments, because there was a counterpunch essay revisiting Ward Churchill's comments about 9/11 and Little Eichmann's, and what was right or wrong about not only what he said, but what people thought he said and how they interpreted what he said.
Did you know, or do you know Ward Churchill?
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know him. I mean, I've interviewed him a number of times. I've interviewed his partner, Natsu Saito Taylor, as well, who's a brilliant indigenous scholar and about her work as well. And I talked to Ward Churchill when I was doing my radio show at PFW. Shout out to WPFW, and we'll be raising up Katia Stitt yet again later. But I interviewed him several times, but on this issue in particular, because I had one of the other years ago gone down the rabbit hole of his removal from the University of Colorado case. And I had read all of the transcripts. I mean, I had really gotten into it. It's terrible that I remember almost none of it. other than, you know, for instance, like the late Derek Bell came to his strong defense, and the arguments that they were trying to, because what they tried to do is turn it into Ward Churchill had plagiarized his work. And that's why they're removing him. And it wasn't about what he said about 9/11. And they were on the one hand, if I remember correctly, they were on the one hand unable to prove, or were proven incorrect in the plagiarism argument, but were still able to maintain his removal, or he was allowed to come back, but there was some kind of, anyway, I can't remember exactly what it is.
Yeah,
but this is the short answer. I do know him at least a little bit.
I knew him in the late 90s, in the mid to late 90s, when he was still at University of Colorado before the, 9/11 stuff hit. And, we really got to see in the early 2000s, kind of early 2000 cancel culture, right? And the roundabout way they figured out how to cancel him, though his writings, which is so important around COINTELPRO, had been marginalized regularly. But I think he had done too well at University of Colorado, creating an ethnic studies department, trying to make it as radical as it could be, and continued with his radical analysis. I brought him to my school to speak. I really liked him a lot, though I did lose touch with him, during that time period.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it. Yeah, likewise, seen him speak a lot, and liked what he had to say about 9/11 and otherwise in this issue of terrorism after this issue of the Little Eichmann's essay. But anyway, if you want, you could stick around. We can come back to that, but I want to make sure we get to the crux of what it is that brought you here this morning, and which is you wanted to let us know because we turn on the news, and depending on what you look at, we hear on the one hand the economy is in some ways improving. We also hear we see in some other sectors where certain segments of our communities want to tell us how great things are or can be. So I always think it's good to actually look at what's really going on. So please tell us what's happening.
No, I think it's appropriate too on this fake holiday of Labor Day, a kind of bastardization of May Day.
I even forgot about that.
Right. The bastardization of May Day, which even though May Day was based off American workers dying in unsafe conditions, it still had too much socialist affiliation. So we had to create our own Labor Day, so for today. So I think it's appropriate to get into unemployment numbers for this. And again, I'm focused on the Black community. And I looked at our last conversation, and, I think, I see an area in our last conversation where it looks like I was headed in the right direction. And then another where I think I erred a bit. One was I said in the last conversation that I thought the July unemployment numbers, because we're going to talk today about the August unemployment numbers, might have been let's say, low in terms of unemployment or strength in the economy, because we were celebrating the end of COVID way too early and everything was opening up. So, it brought Black unemployment down to a level of 8.1%, which, I highlighted would be a serious recession number if that was unemployment for the country as a whole. We are now seeing that Black unemployment has gone up to 8.8%. So I think we are seeing that the COVID Delta is shutting down, though it's not by government mandate, but people just maybe aren't going out to restaurants, going out the way they were actually. And I think we're even seeing in the labor market as a whole, people keep saying there are all of these jobs opened. And I think there are positions open for very low pay that in which you can be in front of a whole bunch of people all the time and expose yourself to to COVID variants that are increasingly dangerous, increasingly infectious. And I don't know why economists can't figure out, well, why aren't people taking these jobs? I think it's quite clear that the reason people aren't taking these jobs is that they have some concern about their health and their well-being. So, but, all of that to say that even though I think the national unemployment went down from 5.4 to 5.2%, Black unemployment has gone up from 8.1 to 8.8%. And I do think we might be that we are on the path of seeing the true impact of the COVID recession on our economy. And that is because just as COVID Delta is really, emerging, and we have higher COVID numbers than we did last year at this time, we are seeing the government investments in helping keeping the economy afloat all ending. And this is where I was wrong. I was saying by the end of the year of 2021 is when the unemployment benefits would be cut, the COVID unemployment benefits, the extra $300 a month, the allowing of self-employed and contractors to get unemployment benefits. All of that is being cut by tomorrow. In some states, 26 states, they had already cut it. And I think that actually that is why the labor force participation rate, the amount of people looking for jobs has been increasing, because in many states, people have already lost the supplemental COVID unemployment benefits. They already couldn't get unemployment because they were self-employed. But now the entire country, at least tomorrow, will be cut from all those benefits. And so I think we're at a very dangerous economic space where the country has cut back on investments in the economy for regular people in COVID. The country has cut back in restrictions, which could help inhibit the spreading of COVID. And now we're going to face the real kind of economic turmoil that the kind of ongoing COVID epidemic is causing in our economy.
So just real quick before we go any farther, the basics again. When you say the Black unemployment rate has gone up to, I think you said 8.8%.
Yes.
That figure again, or all unemployment figures again, are measuring what specifically? Because what is that? What is that number, and it's saying, and is it not saying about the economy or the condition of Black or any other labor force? And when you read the unemployment numbers,
I mean, it's not saying a lot. I mean, like, obviously it doesn't say, you know, the median income. It doesn't say the wealth. It doesn't say who gets benefits, what type of jobs, these types of things, right? Mm-hmm. All it is saying is that out of those that are considered officially, you know, in the job market, either has a job or looking for a job, that 8.8%, let's just round it up to 9% of African Americans who either have a job or looking for a job cannot find one and are unemployed. Like, that is what it's saying. It's not, you know, only, I believe it's about 61% of African Americans are considered, you know, part of the labor participation rate, are considered in the job market. Now, that's not actually that different from whites. Whites are right around there. Blacks have, which is kind of surprising to me, Blacks have a labor participation rate or in the job market at the same level as whites. I think the difference here is that 61% shows for African Americans what percentage of the population are able to work their way into the official economy. While I think 61% for whites show that when you have a decent amount of wealth, it allows for a decent amount of your population to choose not to be part of the employment situation. And you can have people working from home or these types of things, retiring early. So I think their 61% labor participation rates show different things for different communities. But hopefully that's a decent explanation of what the 8.8% is representing.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also because it in general, if you're, because it's only counting people who are actively looking for work or known to be looking for work. It's not actually counting all of the people who aren't working, who aren't looking for work. And to the point you also pointed out, it's not counting people who might have a job, but that job is, you know, largely useless if it's talking about, you know, covering all your bills or giving you a sustainable life for you and your family or having health care or things like that. So it's
no, and absolutely. And to better contextualize, right, the height of unemployment for the country during the Great Recession was 10%, right? So 8.8% is not that far from 10%. No, some people might say 8.8% is only a small part of the population, but it's kind of like COVID. It only takes a small part of the population to have unemployment or to be infected to cause massive economic turmoil. And that's what we're finding in the African American community. And again, it's regular, right? African Americans are regularly twice the unemployment rate of whites. You know, and this gets me to something that we had talked a bit about in the last one about this Build Back Better phenomenon. And I went into a little rabbit hole about that. But let me first pause to see if there's anything else you want to talk about as relates to these.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to clarify that just to remind whoever might need it probably beyond our immediate chat audience. This is usually pretty sophisticated, but just in general, this idea that these numbers, as bad as that, I think you're right in saying, as bad as these unemployment numbers are, they're not really showing how bad it really is for Black or anyone else.
Sure. I mean, you can more look at African-American poverty rates around 20%. The main guy, this guy named Ed Wolf, who lives upstate in New York. I think all he does is once a year puts out good wealth numbers. He put out a paper highlighting, it was the numbers I usually use for Black median wealth, not including depreciating assets, and it's highlighting, I think, close to the estimate we made, only $7,000 median wealth for a Black household, which, again, can easily be used up, within a month of any type of economic, or actually within one incident of an economic challenge. So anyway, yes, I mean, and if you want, next time we can talk more about the Black economic condition as a whole, because I think there is a lot to say that. I think these unemployment numbers just give a little piece. But one thing we did talk about, I mentioned last time, was this Build Back Better phenomenon. And I don't know what I was doing, or phenomenon meaning this was a phrase that Biden was using to talk about how he was going to, with his administration, build the economy back in a better way, in a more inclusive way, in a more racial equitable way, in a way that built the middle class. And I was looking around at it, and I was shocked to find that this phrase was used by the Clintons in 2010 in relation to Haiti. And that they had said they were going to build back better Haiti. So Biden took this build back, and actually I'm going to quote from who was it? Action Aid did a report in 2015. You can look it up. Just a Google Build Back Better Action Aid, January 2015. They did a report that said, let me quote it here, that far from building back better, the $9 billion in U.S. aid to Haiti failed to construct even 10% of the houses promised to those most affected by the earthquake, while at least a quarter of U.S. aid reconstructed funds were used for an industrial park. In a country struggling to feed itself in a region 200 miles from the epicenter of the earthquake, international donors and Haitian authorities chose to pursue a project that paved over fertile farmland to create a few thousand low-income jobs. So it's not that just they took the phrase Build Back Better, they took, and it's like what Nefa said in our last conversation, building back better neoliberalism, they took the failed policy of Build Back Better in Haiti and said, hey, that sounds good, particularly to promote to Blacks in the United States. And we took it. Like there wasn't even a critique when he was using this as a leading campaign space. I feel bad that I didn't find this out and at least try to bring it to light earlier, but it's just amazing how the same old songs, even that have been proven to not work, are put forward to continue on, as like Fred Hampton used to say, answers that don't answer, solutions that don't solve, what have you. But anyway, I thought that was really interesting.
That is fascinating, and I mean, yeah, it shouldn't be surprising at all that the Clinton political tree had its fingers on the script on Biden's script, and it's clear, well, it seems clear to me that Biden isn't the originator of almost anything he's saying or doing. So none of that is really surprising to me. So let me just ask you to lay out anything else you wanted to bring us this morning, and then definitely we can either get into some of it now or tease a little bit of it for the next visit of yours. But how what you are sharing today does relate to the overall condition of Black labor in this country. And I guess, I mean, honestly, I lost complete track of what was going on with the calendar. So it is perfect that it worked out surreptitiously for a Labor Day discussion.
But
because I can't claim that I was planning it, because
yeah, well,
serendipitous.
Yeah.
I think what I don't know what I said, the word I just said, but serendipitous is what I was trying to. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do think, one, Black disenfranchisement from the economy is consistent, is maintained. It's not really changing much since, the 1980s. Some things like home ownership hasn't changed since the 1970s, despite claims from the establishment and policies that are put forward that says in the name of addressing racial inequality, we're going to do this and that. Most of these policies still have very little quantitative effect. So I think, that's the one basic lens we should look at all of these things. But then secondly, I do, this whole idea of COVID and what type of effect it's having. Again, I think we first saw COVID as a short-term pandemic, as something we'd have to worry about to get through. Now it's increasingly, and I'm seeing the way European countries are starting to address it. I think there's starting to be an increased understanding that, at least in Western European countries, including the US, everyone's going to get COVID. And how to keep the economy moving forward regardless, right? And again, that's the point I was trying to highlight, that it's, to me, crazy how we're cutting back the very limited restrictions we did have in this country when COVID was less infectious, less dangerous, and we're cutting them back because I think, honestly, political will has said we're just going to get the economy going. It reminds me of a quote I saw, that sickness in capitalism is the inability to work. And so the sickness that our political economic structure was worried about was the shutdowns. And so now we can make people not sick because we can open up jobs. And now people can work, they should work, and let's make them work. So let's take away unemployment benefits. Let's take away unemployment benefits to self-contractors. Let's make people get in the economy. And, hopefully we give enough of them vaccines that they won't die, but they still will probably get the disease and still might be sick, but the economy's going. So I do think, this will be something to watch over the next year or two, is do we just have, and how this affects Black people in particular. I mean, we're regularly disenfranchised and marginalized. We regularly have much worse health conditions. Will this just make the bad situation that much worse, which I assume it will? Will it, kind of have not much of effect, and we'll just kind of continue in our regularly disenfranchised status? Those are the things I will be looking for, and then looking to see if there's any space in the political sphere to actually highlight the radical change necessary to get us off the path of ongoing disenfranchisement. It's just, the problem is, when you have new problems like COVID, people only want to talk about the new problems and not about the ongoing problems we've always had.
It's a very good point. And I mean, that is the version of the vaccine conspiracies that I tend to appreciate. That is that not that they're intending to kill us or make us sick, et cetera, and all that, but that they are intended to get us back to work as soon as possible, so that there are not questions raised about the nature of our economy and why people have to risk themselves and their safety to work, when
that's right,
increased safety nets could be provided, even if temporarily, which I think is the fear that it would lead to other questions about making those safety nets permanent. But that's anyway. That's so I fully agree with that. That if anything, there's been a rush to get us as vaccinated as possible to get us back to working.
Because I think a more effective way to get us working would have been to really do social distancing and to do I do find it interesting. And again, this isn't like a conspiracy. I don't think vaccines, put chips in you or, whatever people are saying. But it is interesting that the countries that have been most successful in limiting infection rates are the countries that don't have a vaccine first strategy. They had first a social distancing, masking, testing strategy that then some of them use vaccines in addition to it. But it's the countries that have really failed in preventing infection, like the United States, like Israel, like Great Britain, that then just try to use vaccines as a replacement for strong public health.
That's right. That's
right. And as a way to get you back in the workforce. But
and most of the places that you're talking about also were buttressing those populations with national health care, with covering people's salaries, sometimes up to 80+%. All kinds of stuff was being done in other parts of the world that was not happening here, that would have made the issue of vaccine and then the mandates and all this other stuff that's feeding an already hostile population, more ammo towards that hostility. All that would have been moot. But instead, they're like, nah, we're just, we're not going to give you anything. We're not, even if we campaigned on it in the last election, we're just going to drop some vaccines on you, tell everybody to get back to work. And we're
going to cut the little benefits we did give you.
That's right, as you started with. That's right,
as the growing height of this. But I don't want this video to get taken down, so we'll stop talking about.
No, that's it. That's it. Yeah, that's it. We didn't condemn or criticize any of it. No, yeah, right. Well, look, man, I appreciate you, Dedrick Asante-Muhammad, and we look forward to your next visit. And I do want us to have a more. I would like to do the whole. Let's really look at the state of the Black economy, and then talk again, obviously about what you think might be done about it. But definitely appreciate it, and look forward to your next visit. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Look forward to it. Talk to you.
All right. All right, everybody. Thanks again to Dedrick Asante-Muhammad. I really appreciate him coming through and at least trying to add some accuracy and honesty to some of these discussions. And take a very quick break and come back and get into some more of this as I was planning to anyway. So on this Labor Day. All right, back here real quick. I mix what I like.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.